The guru was named Sri Rajneesh. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. Residing in Rajneeshpuram.
The Rajneeshpuram, okay.
Close to the Oregon coast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wild Dispatch. I'm Robin and I'm back with more skills and stories from the wild. Today we're crawling out of the peyote-induced stupor of our last episode and continuing the wild adventure that is the life of Ejler. If you missed the first episode, then I highly recommend you circle back and give it a listen. We've heard some fantastic stories and there's plenty more to come too.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch! Wow. So at what point did you decide that it was time to start moving further north again and heading back? Were you always intending to move back to America, or were you...
Well, we were just going to do this stint and then we were going to go back to Denmark and pick up where we left off. You know, we had a we were teachers.
Yes.
So we had student loans and shit, and we got to do something about that.
Yeah.
But we had kind of open-ended, so we didn't know when we would cut it off. I mean, at some point you get enough out of traveling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at one point when we were at that quest for peyote, we met an American, Calvin, who was from Texas. He was a draft resistor. He had run away from the Vietnam War. He had run to Colombia. And he had been living from hand to mouth for 20 years, 15 years. Avoiding going back to the United States.
Yeah.
At that point, the draft resistors had not yet been pardoned. I think it was Jimmy Carter who did that. Made a wholesale pardon of the people who had avoided the Vietnam draft. So, by the way, he had been pardoned. He just wasn't gone back. He hadn't gone back yet. He was afraid to surface. He was afraid to go back to his suburban life in Texas. He was afraid to
because it comes with like moral and
Yeah.
social consequences.
He was feeling good about being in Mother Nature in Mexico, where he was now.
Yeah.
We met him in a town. We clicked. We liked him. He liked us. He spent his days now on a beach on the Pacific coast in more or less central Mexico. And he invited us out to visit him when our peyote quest was over. So when that happened, we said, let's go and visit Calvin on the coast in Cihuatlan, in the state of Jalisco.
Yeah.
So we hitchhiked out from central Mexico, which is very long, like 1,000 miles or more. Hitchhiked all the way out to his place. He had very scant description from his, just verbally he described where he was, and we found him. We found him. He lived on a beach, all the way out on a sandbar between a river that ran parallel with the coast, and then there was like a quarter-mile sandbar between that and the ocean.
Yeah.
And here he and other people, seasonal fishermen who came from town, which was about 10 miles inland, a coconut and banana processing town. Fishermen would come out. They had erected shelters out there, and he had his. His was rather luxurious. All tied together, sticks of wood with coconut palm leaves on it. Ramadas, palapas, whatever you want to call it, huts.
Yeah.
We stayed there for 3 months.
On the beach.
On the beach. We built our own house. We helped Calvin build a boat.
Oh, you did?
We did. We fished the shit out of that place. We started with clams because you can get clams without anything, right? You dig for clams with a stick if you need to, right? I mean, you go all the way down to the gatherer, hunter, basic, move,
back to the caveman.
dig clams.
You've had a lot of practice with this kind of behavior.
And they were great. They were great. They were meaty. They were full. They tasted good. And the Mexican fisherman looked at us and came over and said, "You're gonna eat those?" "Yeah, we are." Like nobody eat clams except for the lowest of low life. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
We didn't give a shit. We got clams. We caught clams. We ate them.
Of course.
And we saw that there was crabs in the river. Like they looked a lot like our Dungeness crab. Mm-hmm. Much smaller, haibas. They're kind of bluish, very aggressive, very fast.
Yeah.
But they went on shallow water. So after a couple of days, we actually caught a couple by hand. Very difficult.
Just chasing them.
Sticks, actually.
Okay.
Pincher sticks. Something we may use later when we're going to catch crawdads, crayfish.
Okay, yeah.
You just take a stick and split it down the middle. Yeah, force it open with a cross stick.
Bind it.
Twine it.
Yeah.
Cut a couple notches in the two stick jaws. You know, a notch here, a notch here.
Uh-huh.
Make sure that it's flexible. Get it down around a claw arm on the haiba, because the haibas are incredibly aggressive and very, very strong and sharp.
Okay.
And if they bite you, they'll draw blood. So you don't want any of that. But they're easy to get in the defensive position.
They'll get their
and they kind of stop that way, you know.
Yeah.
You can't be like subtle with them. You got to approach them with some get in their face, and they kind of stop and go defensive. Then you got them. So we got two, and they were really, really good.
Yeah.
Then we befriended one of the fishermen there, Jaime. He was the star fisherman on the beach. There was about 4 or 5 fishermen that came out regularly.
Yeah.
He was young. He was wiry as can be. Burned to a beautiful bronze. I mean, he was like a hero. He looked like a god. And he fished. He caught fish left and right. He fished with a throw net in the surf. He fished with hooks in the river. He fished with tiny little throw nets in the river and caught langostinos, which is like a prawn about this size here with very long.
Is it langoustines?
Yeah.
Yeah. I get you. Yeah.
And he also caught haibas with his hoops.
Okay.
That he made it himself. And when he saw we caught a couple of haibas, he said, "You want to borrow a couple of my hoops?" Do we ever? So he gave us some. He caught a fish and gave us a fish so we could cut it up and catch haibas. And now we could catch haibas, man. Yeah.
Then you were eating.
We graduated, and so it was time to learn to fish. And I still had my 50-pound monofilament.
Yep.
I got hold of a new coffee can. I got hold of some lead. We had to walk to town, which is like a journey. But after about a week out there, or 10 days or whatever, said, okay, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this. We got to go to town.
Yeah.
And so it was a 10-mile walk in, 10-mile walk back, right? So we came home back with some lead, and we used the cap of a beer screw cap, and held it over the fire, filled little lead pellets, bought the lead in the form of pellets,
Okay.
into the cap, stuck, and then it got molten, right? And then we stuck a tiny little twig in the middle of it, and then let it cool off. And then the twig burned off, and we had a hole in it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So now I could tie it to my 50-pound monofilament about a foot and a half up from the hook.
Yeah.
And on the hook, a piece of fish. Coffee can in one hand with a cross stick on it, number 10 coffee can. Wound up with my 50-pound monofilament. I would say the lead was probably about like 3 or 4 ounces or so.
Okay.
Maybe 5. Swirling around your head, just the right circumference of a swing. Let go. Keep the coffee can in line, right? Just rolls off out past the breakers, out in the ocean. Not as easy as it sounds. Many times in the beginning, that lead would stop in midair and come right back at you because something went awry on the coffee can, right? So it took a while to get the hook out there, but we did it. We got the hook out after days of practice. Surf is very powerful. You got to get out past the surf.
Yeah.
And then we caught fish. Caught the crevalle jack, which is also low on the ranks, but ooh, was it ever good?
Yeah.
Then I caught a pargo, a red fish, kind of like our red snapper.
Mm-hmm.
That was a real step up. Jaime was impressed by our tenacity.
Jaime, the local fisherman.
Local fisherman.
The bronze god.
Who let us use his hybrid traps.
Okay.
I was on it from daybreak to sunset, hardly without a break. I mean, I was bitten to the max. My friend Hans, he got a little tired of it. He was never a fisherman during our childhood. I never fished with him during our childhood. He was a kind of a brainy type and more of a farm boy. I was a fisherman. So he found other things to do. He devised the building of our hut. He talked to a local fisherman about borrowing the boat so we could his canoe, so we could sail up the river to a place that had like straight tall trees. He got hold of a machete, and when I took a break in the fishing, we went and got some building materials, and then we started putting this hut together. Got to hold some baling wire, and I was fishing in the surf, catching fish. Jaime said, "You want to learn to use a throw net?" Do I ever? Because they were, at times, they would come out from town, there would be 8 or 10 fishermen in the surf when there was a certain run. All with throw nets, bringing in scads of fish. Like sometimes 4, 5, 6 in a throw. Spanish mackerel, also called Sierra.
Yeah.
A small herring-like, very attractive fish and valuable fish called a lisa. Very oily, fetches a lot of money, very difficult to catch. Pargo, those people who were pulling 20, 30 pound pargos out of the surf.
With the nets.
With a net.
Yeah. Wow.
Robalo, which is the most desired of them all. Very attractive, very strong, very expensive fish. They get a lot of money for robalo. Jurel, or the coral jack, they just threw back out. They didn't want those.
Yeah.
They're garbage fish. It took me a couple of weeks to learn to throw that net with any kind of efficiency in the surf. But I got there. It was fun.
Yeah.
I caught fish.
What was the nuance of being successful and unsuccessful? Technique?
Yeah. Practice.
On what was it, the timing, or what was the thing that you like most remember about?
It's the motion. There's a body rhythm to it. It's really difficult to describe, but so the net is about I'd say 6 or 8 feet from top to bottom. It's a circle.
Okay.
That's about maybe 12 feet diameter.
Does it have like little weights on the outside?
It had weights on the outside,
Okay.
and it has a knot up here
In the center?
in the center.
Okay.
And that knot is tied to a tether. That tether is around your wrist. Now you got to divide the net up into 3 portions. One portion go over your shoulder.
Okay.
No, one portion go over your elbow. One portion goes in the right hand. One portion goes in the left hand. Now you have 3 portions. Now you got to take it around your body, and it's not a circular motion. It's in 3 segments.
Okay.
It goes out, turns, and then you open it up in one fluid motion, turning the opposite way.
Like a big sweeping release.
Yeah, like it. As long as you can make it with your body.
Yeah.
Pull all the way through. And if it's done right, it opens up. It opens up in a spiral and lands fully stretched out. Very difficult.
But I think a beauty, I'm sure.
And when you look at people who does it right, you think nothing to it. When you get the net in your hand, you get wiser quickly. So I had a very successful fishing day one day, and I caught something like 25 Sierras.
Wow. That's like the mackerel, is it?
Yeah, the Spanish mackerel.
Yeah.
They're about a 2-pound fish, 3-pound fish. That's a lot of fish.
That's the ones with like almost like tiger stripes on the top of them, is that
Yeah.
right? I think I've caught a lot of those in my childhood. Sailing. Go on, please continue.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
A tropical water fish.
Quite crazy, amazing looking iridescent things.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Very attractive fish.
Yeah.
Sierra, so called because its mouth is full of very sharp small teeth.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Sierra also means saw.
Ah, okay. Makes a lot of things make sense now. So that's amazing. Like you're learning these like raw fishing skills from people that you've just befriended.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually made a pact, Jaime and I. He would teach me fishing if I taught him English. I learned a lot of fishing. He didn't learn shit for English. It was a one-way street. Luckily, I spoke enough Spanish to where I could like take his instructions.
Yes.
Our Spanish were improving very rapidly,
Okay.
so it was the communication situation was good. But what do you do with 24 medium-sized fish in 100-degree heat?
Yeah.
What do you do? So what did I do? There was a little trading post between the beach and the town Cihuatlan. A little store and
So-
post office.
So 5 miles away. Is that
5 miles away.
Okay.
Named Rebalse. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take these fish to Rebalse. And Jaime, who has a bicycle, he let me use his bicycle because I didn't want to put the fish in my backpack. So he gave me a sack, and I put the sack in the box of his bicycle and took it to Rebalse.
As quickly as you could, I'm sure.
Yeah, and there the grocer, if you can call it that, he had a store with eggs, tomatoes, cucumbers, beer, onion, flour, oatmeal, soap, salt. That was about it.
So I'm looking at the photo.
You're looking at a photo. We've been out at night.
This is you and Jaime.
Me and Jaime. Jaime has his spear gun in his hand. But what we've done there is that he says the evening before, he says, let's go out and shoot a caiman.
Which is a type of, it looks like a crocodile.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So he has a 22. So we go out at night and he has a couple of flashlights. And they have very shiny eyes. Red.
Okay.
Red shiny eyes.
Interesting.
So I'm in the front of the canoe and he's in the back canoe with a paddle, and I have a flashlight. And we see the eyes. We see the red eyes somewhere ahead.
Yeah.
And we get really close. He's really, really quiet with his canoe paddle. And so we get close to where I can actually see the outline of a head. And so I shoot it in the neck. And the animal goes nuts in the water. And Jaime paddles right up to it, grabs the tail, and flings it into the boat. And it immediately attacks. You know, and we sit both there with our legs up in the air, you know, away from this mad animal that's totally incapacitated, but not at all really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's snapping at us like wildly. I tried to get my foot on its head and on its jaws,
Like its snout or something.
but it's just so lightning fast. So Jaime rows us to the side of the river, and I go in and I find a branch and I just clobber it in the boat till it stops. It was quite a small animal, as you can see here. You know, 3 feet or so from head to tail.
Yeah.
Not big at all, but just like frightfully
Big enough.
fast.
Big enough.
Yes, with a mouthful of teeth,
Yeah.
big teeth.
Yeah. If a fish that big was in the boat with teeth like that, you would be reacting just the same.
My God. Yeah, so we cooked that thing. Butchered it, cooked it. There's a back strap on it. There's a meaty tail.
Yeah.
Delicious. Like prawns.
Really?
Very delicious. There's the throw net sitting there on the sand. That's our palace.
Oh, this is your temporary home.
Yep. It's our little fireplace, our little kitchen.
And you stayed there for how long?
3 months.
Wow.
Long enough to learn some ropes.
Yeah. That's so so free.
So
Must
free.
have been nice sleeping with that sound of the ocean every night.
Every night. The day I caught all those fish, it was like a pinnacle of an experience. You know, I'd learned to.
Yeah.
I had learned to use a throw net. In a place like that, at like the highest achievement, in a way.
Well, it's been your entire goal for a period of time, right?
Yeah, it had.
And I know, I personally really enjoy that, right? When you're so focused on something, and it's almost like everything else fades away.
Yeah, my trial companion were beginning to get a little irritated with me. Because I was so swallowed up in my own world of fishing. And he was getting a little bored because fishing, yeah, sure, he enjoyed it, but it wasn't passionate.
It wasn't his like.
No, I was just like ignoring everything else. But the day I caught those fish, we walked it into Ribalta, he and I together.
Mm-hmm.
And the grocer called up some friends, sent the child running, you know, not by phone.
Yeah, yeah.
Sent the child running, let's give some order. And then the child comes back with some other people, and they come up, and all of a sudden, the fish is gone. And then the grocer says, well, what do you want in exchange? Well, what do you got? Well, we got eggs, we got onion, we got this and that, some of all. And then we want beer. Okay. So we come back with and all he has was Modelo. So we come back with 20 Modelos and a dozen eggs and 5 onions and 6 beautiful tomatoes and shit like that. It was like, holy Moses, we're earning our keep here. This is almost like the most you could ever wish for. I've always wished for, when I go traveling, I want to go out and being able to sustain my life with what I do, not having to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's not as easy, but here we had achieved a modicum of just that kind of unachievable thing, and we were feeling really, really happy about that. But it was also kind of like, okay, time to go and do something else.
I can totally understand. There's that sense of finding your place in the world, right? The wonderful deliciousness of feeling like you belong and you're comfortable and you've, in some capacity, mastered your terrain.
Yeah.
And you are thriving. The idea, at least, and I think maybe you and I are similar in that sense. The idea of being able to be in a place and thrive. To be able to exist comfortably. And something which I don't feel like I've quite got to yet, but even the smallest portion of that idea is utterly delicious, isn't it? So you did that for a few months, but then there was a point, I don't know, through either your own distractions of other things or conflict with your friend who wasn't quite as passionate about fishing.
He was definitely pulling, said, let's
move on.
Let's go to Oaxaca.
Okay.
That was one of our goals on the travel. We'll go to Oaxaca. Oaxaca is kind of a magical place in a way. It has a strong presence in people's consciousness when thinking about Mexico. We don't think about Mexico City. Yeah. We don't think about Guadalajara. We don't think about... we think about Oaxaca. We think about places like San Cristobal de las Casas, San Miguel de Allende, those kind of places. They were on our travel itinerary. Yeah. Like magical places to visit. So he says, let's go to Oaxaca. So we stopped this easy living, which was not so easy, really. I mean, just getting the necessities was a 20-mile round trip on foot.
It seems like there's a difference, though, right? Easy living, easy in some ways, but if you're really passionate and enjoying and focused on it, then in that way it's easy because it's not a burden. It's something you're enjoying. Is that right?
Absolutely, enjoying, and to the point of being swallowed up by it.
Yeah.
And this thing about going round trip 20 miles to town, it was there was so much reward in it. Because we only go to town when you are deprived enough of all the necessities that you really need to go. Yeah. And so getting there and getting a fresh supply of beer and going to a restaurant and all that, oh my God, it's fucking fantastic. And then haul all this stuff out to the beach and start over again. That journey was kind of necessary in order to really enjoy the beach. Yeah. Really enjoy the beach. And enjoy the unimaginable quantities of mosquitoes and no-see-ums.
Wow, really?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you got to learn to live with that.
Oh, you just ruined the fantasy for me.
This was the reason why there was no people there. It was flooded with mosquitoes. We have a big, swampy coconut banana plantation from a river delta inland that is just a mosquito breeding ground. Yeah.
So what? I mean, I guess you just get bitten and you get used to it. What did you do?
No, none of us accepted that. You have to cover up. You have two options. You have to cover up or you have to use insect repellent.
Yes.
Those are the only two options.
At that time, DEET was around, I think.
It was.
It's like a product of the Vietnam
They
War
had
or
something that worked.
Okay.
Despicable stuff. You know.
Stuff that burns when you put it on.
Yeah, if you don't get it in your mouth, don't get it in your eyes. That's all I can say. And it's hard once you have it on everything not to get it in your mouth and your eyes.
Yep.
But also we had some really good clothes that they couldn't get through.
Okay.
And otherwise, if you got close enough to the ocean, there would be much fewer of them. So I spent the whole day in the surf. I was okay.
That was your escape.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you were talking about Oaxaca before. Is that where you went to then after? You were on the beach in Oaxaca as well, or?
No. I got some wasabi. Well,
We need to take a moment.
I don't think I mentioned Oaxaca before. This was in Ciudad, Jalisco. Oaxaca is a southern state.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm getting confused.
At this point here, we were on our way south.
Okay.
Our stay in the beach in Mexico was fairly early in our travel.
Uh-huh.
It was just after our peyote trip. And then from there on, we went south to Oaxaca, and from Oaxaca to Guatemala.
Okay.
From Guatemala to Honduras. From Honduras to Nicaragua. Nicaragua to Costa Rica.
Okay.
I fished in every one of those places. In Honduras, we fished on the Caribbean Ocean, caught a barracuda. Small one, luckily, so we could eat it.
Yeah.
They have a tendency to accumulate toxins. I don't know exactly how that works, but a full-grown barracuda, say over 3 feet, should not be consumed.
Too much poison.
I don't know exactly what the poison is, and I haven't studied it any further, but we were told in no uncertain terms that don't eat big barracuda.
Okay.
But this was a little guy. We were out in the Caribbean before it was overrun by tourists. This is in 1980. And on that island where we sat, also where I hooked the tarpon,
Yes.
same place,
Yeah.
same island. We also, it was surrounded by coral. It was a coral reef. It was a coral atoll. And there was nobody diving on these corals. It was only us. And there was some big, fat lobster there.
Really?
Spiny lobster. Holy Moses. We got very saturated with lobster. Not as good as we thought it would be. Lobster has such a highfalutin image.
Yeah.
Ibis was much better.
Oh, really?
Much better. We were not going to not eat lobster.
No, of course.
Of course.
But it didn't end up being, quite as nice as it was made out by.
Not at all. In our mind's eye.
Society.
In our image, when we heard about lobster, I never had lobster in Denmark. Not once in my life. So when we were out there, we were diving. We saw these creatures on the bottom walking around. Whoa, did you see that? Yeah. They were surprisingly difficult to catch. They're very fast.
They shoot backwards. Eh?
Oh my God.
I've actually with my wife Annika, we've caught a lobster before, and it
Under a boulder right now. Boom,
Yeah.
gone. But we tag team them. We see a lobster. Okay. That lobster probably lives over there, right? So you dive down first, and I come right after, and try to get him. And he's going to swim right to you, and it worked. He did. We got him.
Oh, that's so good. It's so funny that I had almost the same experience with like the same logic of finding, there's a lobster down here under this rock. we're gonna and just do that thing where one person spooks the other one and gets him to shoot out straight out into the arms of the other. It's the way it seems like. I'm sure that's a technique that's been going on.
Yeah.
Since the beginning of
Dawn.
of humans.
Time.
So, at what point did you decide that it was time? Well, I mean, I'm guessing there was a point where you and your friend parted ways, because I'm guessing he wanted to go back to Denmark and you decided to stay on, or did you
That's
both
right.
stay on?
That's right. He at some point said, I gotta go back. I gotta take care of things.
Yeah.
I think we were getting a little tired of each other's company.
And this is after what? 9 months, a year?
9 months.
Yeah.
8 months.
Okay. It's a long time to be in each other's company.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he went north. Actually, he went with another travel companion, a couple from Germany. I wanted to go to Yucatan. So I worked my way north and went to a small island in the Gulf of Mexico, north shore of the Yucatan.
So, we're going to carry on with the story, but let's take a culinary intermission for a second.
Yeah, okay. So I have here a substance
Okay.
that I call tapenade. It's not tapenade. I think tapenade, per definition, contains olives. There's no olives in here. What there's in there is at the end of the growing season in the garden, everything starts to die down and you got to do something about it. And so here's a whole bunch of peppers in various states of ripeness and heat.
Yes.
There's a bunch of tomatoes, and basil is dying. You know, another week will ruin the crop, so take it all now.
Yeah.
And onions in the ground. So we have these ingredients: onion, pepper, tomatoes, basil. Large quantities.
Uh-huh.
So I cut them up into chunks and pieces and put them in a Pyrex glass pan, cake pan,
Yes.
layered with drizzles of olive oil and some salt and pepper. I put it in the oven at about 350 degrees, and there it sits for like 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
And bubbles away
Yeah.
and reduces to half the size. And it gets very concentrated. This is it.
Okay. Let's try. Got myself a cracker. And the serving recommendation is just straight on a cracker.
Straight on a cracker.
Okay. Ah, but you're using cucumber.
I put cucumber on top just to give it a little freshness, because it's very cooked,
Okay.
very like soft. So give it a little, balance it out with some crispness.
Okay. That's very good. It's kind of sort of Italian vibes.
Very rich.
Yeah. Very great. Very tasty.
I use it as a condiment on many things. You know, goes really good with pork.
Yeah.
Pork loves something sweet. You know, pork and apple goes hand in hand. This has the same sweetness and roundness as an apple. It goes with chicken. It goes on any pasta dish.
Yeah, I was going to say. It'd be perfect for pasta. What a treat.
Yeah, it is a treat.
So do you think that you've got this desire for ingenuity in the food and everything? You have like a real attention to detail, which I think you apply to everything, it seems. Do you think that you got that? You're saying, you know, your mother used to do a lot of the cooking and the things you would hunt and fish for in Denmark. Do you think you got some of that from that?
Yeah, my mother was a fantastic cook. And she had many mouths to feed.
Yes.
And she knew how to take an old hen that was done laying eggs and make it taste heavenly. That's a real art.
Yeah. Essential knowledge in a farm.
Yes. Nothing is wasted, ever.
Yeah.
Also, when we did a pig, everything was used. She made head cheese. I mean, you take a pig's head and you take it and boil it. And then you take all the organic material that you can get off of a pig's head and you blend it up and then you mix it with some flours and some other ingredients and you put it in a form. It has its own aspect, and you put it in a form, put it in the fridge, let it solidify, let it sit in there for a week.
Yeah.
And you cut it out and it's so firm you can cut it and slice it. It's a loaf. Comes out of the bread pan form. It's like a loaf and you can cut it, you can slice it. It is the best. Her head cheese was the best.
It's such a good
I have dreams of this thing. It was very rare. We only butchered pigs 3 or 4 times a year, right? So we only got to eat it 3 or 4 times a year. It's a real treat. And she had the sauce and the potatoes were just done right.
Yeah.
A sauce with the potatoes stewed in the sauce go hand in hand with this head cheese, together with some pickled beets. I don't think anybody who's going to see this has ever experienced eating head cheese. And I don't think it's on anybody's palate or ever will be. It's gone by the wayside. You don't know what you missed.
Okay, so that begs a question in my mind. Do you think that the nuance of making that head cheese with a pig, it has to be a farm pig, like a fat farm pig, or do you think it would be possible to make it with a wild boar?
I don't know why it wouldn't be possible to make it with a wild boar. No two people is going to make head cheese the same.
Yeah.
So is it the pig that's important, or is it the method or the approach or the the ingredients? It's not just the head cheese that comes off the head. It's other things that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
There's raisins in there. There's flowers, as I said. There's not flowers, flour.
Yes.
Some flour of sorts.
Yes.
And you can probably find it on the internet. I don't see why you shouldn't be able to do it with a wild boar.
Yeah. Well, then that begs the second question, which is, if I do manage to get a wild boar, maybe I should be bringing the head over here and we should be making a little project.
Head cheese.
Do you remember the recipe well enough?
I do not remember the recipe at all.
Okay, but I'm sure it would come back if you saw something we found online.
I have some Danish cookbooks, my mother's Danish cookbooks. I have them.
Okay.
So it's without a doubt in there.
Okay, well maybe that'll have to be that'll have to be an adventure one time.
It is an adventure. Now, mind you, she gone to school. She was a very, very routine cook. I will not guarantee a positive outcome. But I'm willing to try.
But a positive journey.
Positive journey.
Which is all we can ever hope for. Okay, so that brings us nicely to... Where were we now?
Okay, we were... Where does my love of cooking come from?
Yeah, we were talking...
There's no doubt it comes from my childhood home, where we ate really, really good food.
Yeah. And then what I actually meant is, I think as we talked about that a little bit now, but in this journey of yours, this caveman journey, I'm trying to remember where we just left off before our culinary intermission.
Okay, I think I left. I split up with my travel partner, and
Yes.
he'd gone home via Mexico City, and I was bound for Yucatan through Belize, and well, it's just another stay in paradise. I found a really sweet, low, sandy island off of mainland Yucatan in the Gulf of Mexico called Holbox.
Mm-hmm.
And unbeknownst to me, I couldn't know that back then, but it will turn into a tourist haven to the point of where one of my grandnieces, who did a trip to Central and South America here earlier in 2023,
Mm-hmm.
also ends up in Holbox. Remarkably.
By your recommendation or just
No.
by chance?
No, not by my recommendation at all. Even more remarkably, and this is a total irrelevant aside, when Hans and I walked in Guatemala, we walked from central Guatemala all the way out to the Caribbean coast. Hike over mule trails inland. No roads. Just trails.
Yeah.
We end up in a magic place that's called Las Grotas de Lanquin, the caves of Lanquin,
Okay.
where a river emerges from underground. And the fact that it emerges from underground is a lime-rich soil. It emerges from underground. The lime undergoes a metamorphosis from being dissolved under pressure underground into the water to like sedimentate out when it comes out. It hardens up.
Yeah.
It becomes solid.
Yeah.
The calcium carbonate in the water. So it forms these pools, basins, like half-acre big, one after another, shallow, warm, crystal clear, full of fish.
Really?
An incredible place. And we stayed there for 3 or 4 days until we couldn't stand anymore because everything got wet. And we began to fear for our well-being because mold started to grow on our body, on our clothes and on our backpack because it was really warm, really humid. It was always full, the air was always full of water.
So it was like afternoon rains or something like that?
No.
Or?
It's just this river coming out of the ground,
Yeah.
forcefully, spreading a mist
Yeah.
that penetrated everything.
Huh.
So we stayed there just long enough to really like live it, a couple 3 days, and then we walked on. Turns out my grandniece also found that place,
Really?
but now she got there with a guide.
Okay. So it's like more of a known tourist
There's a
destination.
road in for ATVs. Oh boy. There was only walking trails back when I visited.
And this is 30-something years ago?
1980 to 2023. 43 years between.
43 years.
Place was looked the same though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm just gonna quickly conjure up.
You got a picture?
I got a series of pictures that I sent to her.
Okay.
This is one of the pools here.
Yeah.
This is one of the grotas.
Wow.
It's just the jungle scene. This is the river
Yeah.
coming out, running down,
Amazing.
forming the pools. There's a pool upon pool upon pool.
And there's fish in those pools.
Yeah, and this is where we had our camp.
Wow. And that was just there.
That was there.
Yeah. That's like an absolute paradise. And you heard about this before,
No.
or you just found it?
No, just walked
walking,
into it. Didn't know anything about it.
Just strolling
At
through
all.
the jungle.
That's right. Just came
I can
upon it.
only imagine how excited you must have been to find that.
Oh,
That's like,
yeah.
yeah.
It was very exciting. Anyway, so life in Whole Bush was really easy. I stayed with a family. I paid him, for room and board.
Mm-hmm.
His son was a fisherman. He brought home fish, red snapper or reef snapper or whatever it was. I mean, he was his hair was like blonde red from salt water and sun.
Yeah.
He was semi-aquatic, that kid. Wicked with a spear.
Oh, right. He was spearfishing.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was sweet. And then came time to call it a day. Go home. Go home to be like a responsible citizen
Yeah.
and pay off my student loans and
Okay.
resurface in Denmark and get a job.
So you did go home.
I did. I went home. I got a job.
This was after maybe a year.
It's after 10 months.
Okay.
Got a job in the community school system where I went to college. They knew me. Basically, just a substitute teacher for people, pregnant teachers or teachers on leave for whatever reasons. I was just bouncing around between 4 or 5 different schools
Yeah.
in a small area,
Okay.
small town, small schools.
Mm-hmm.
It was all right. It was all right. There was a couple of things that were not all right. One of them was if I took the kids out of the classroom, it was frowned upon. They didn't want the substitute teacher to come up with too many ideas.
Yeah.
All they wanted us to do as substitute teachers is really carry on with the program or just babysit.
Mm-hmm.
Don't come up with, don't take people on field trips. That's just like bother. Let's not go outside and dig for worms or things like that and go to the stream and fish. Let's not do that. So I was confined to the indoors. And that was also okay. We had fun. It was from 4th to 7th grade. It's a very outgoing age.
What kind of age is that in years?
That's from 10 to 13.
Okay.
What I didn't like was the climate in the teachers' lounge or having to interact with parents. The parents was especially bad. They seemed to have a carte blanche permission to take their frustrations out on the substitute teachers who couldn't talk back, who didn't know anything. They could talk to a substitute teacher the way they couldn't talk to a teacher.
Yes.
Proper.
Yeah. It's like a free punching bag.
With a profound lack of respect. And in the teacher's lounge, it was a petty power struggle kind of a situation with a pecking order and privileges and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, oh man, this is too low life. Among my own colleagues, and they behave like that. Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah.
So one day my brother called me up. My brother is 13 years older than me. He was the one who caught the giant pike when I was 5 years old. We've always been close, even though we never really lived together ever.
Mm-hmm.
He was gone by the time I had a consciousness. He was out jobbing for other farmers at age 14. He calls me up. He has, in the meantime, acquired a business, a very successful business, as a self-taught steam engineer.
Oh.
And he's gotten a gig in the offshore oil platforms between Norway and Scotland in the North Sea,
Yeah.
delivering steam. And whereas he's quite a brilliant businessman, he never learned English. I did.
Yeah.
I speak English. So he asked me, and I also know a little bit about his business. I've worked there in periods. So I know how to like maintain a steam generator and keep it running, and do a fail-safe program and troubleshooting and blah blah all that shit. I'm by no means an expert, but I've learned the ropes, the basics. So he said, "Do you want to follow me on this first gig here? Because I can't speak to the engineers. I can't speak to the people up there."
Yeah.
So I did not hesitate a second. I dropped my job.
Yeah.
Boom. I was there immediately, and then we were on a jet to Stavanger, Norway, and on a helicopter to offshore oil platform, and as the Yacht West brothers, we were now subcontractors for Phillips Petroleum, same company that kidnapped my uncle, my granduncle, off the street of New York City and brought him to the bayou of Louisiana.
The very same company.
Very same company. And this was a good gig. This was interesting. It also became very boring after a while.
I can imagine.
It was basically 16-hour shifts. There was nothing else to do, so it wasn't hardship.
Yeah.
If you're not working, you're eating or sleeping.
Not fishing off of an oil rig?
No, they don't want that.
No.
No. Nope. I did try. I did try. I was told no. It was also a platform that was it's an anchored platform. It's not a standing platform. It's an anchored platform.
Oh, it's not set down with big piles into the ground.
No.
Okay.
It has big air pontoons under it. These columns, hollow columns, with a big mushroom bowl down below. It's all airtight.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those.
Yeah.
And then it's anchored to the bottom. And the whole rig is pulled down, so it has like positive buoyancy, so it doesn't work with the ocean.
Yes, yeah.
It's quite high up off the ocean, like 50 feet.
Yes.
So you have to traverse 50 feet of air before you get to water.
Mm-hmm.
We did something like 8 weeks. It was 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off. 10 weeks.
Okay.
Over a duration of 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Then we were done.
And those kinds of jobs are usually quite lucrative, aren't they? When you're working really long shifts and you're on...
I came out the other end with a great big fat paycheck where I hadn't spent any money during the entire time. It was impossible to spend any money.
Yeah.
Nothing. You couldn't spend any money on anything. You go to the cafeteria, you just go up and you get your food and you eat and you walk out. No money changing hands.
Yeah.
And the food they served there was unbelievable. I mean, T-bone steaks this size, you know. It was American catering.
Really?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Enormous plates. I never seen such big dinner plates in my life. So loaded with food.
Yeah.
You could get fat in a place like that quick.
I can imagine. I would for sure.
Then, when I got that paycheck, I said to my brother, okay, my job here is done. I'm off.
Yeah.
So I've only seen Houston. I need to see more of America.
Yeah.
I have a friend. He had escaped to New York City his girlfriend was a famous artist in Denmark, and she got a gig in New York City with a famous theater group, La Mama, kind of an avant-garde theater group based in Greenwich Village.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd followed her there. Unfortunately, she dumped him shortly afterwards. I mean, when you're a gorgeous, incredibly talented artist, and you show up on a scene that is like that worship art icons like Greenwich Village, New York City,
Yeah.
and you have your oafish boyfriend in tow, that's not gonna last. And it didn't. My boyfriend did not get depressed. He toughed it out. He found a good living situation, and he said, "Come on over, visit, man. I'll show you New York City."
Yeah.
So as soon as I was done with this gig in the offshore oil, I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go over to Nils in New York." And he was living in Greenwich Village, and he was living with he was roommate with a gay guy who was renting out a room, and he welcomed me to the house. It was incredibly entertaining. This guy, what was his name? Craig? Yeah. Craig.
Yeah.
Treated us like pets. He said, "Okay, boys, we're gonna go and visit my banker today." No, okay, well, whatever, sure. So here we go, walking down the street, Greenwich Village. He says hello to people left and right, and walk into a bank, and he says, "I'd like to speak with Mr. Blah blah blah." Yeah, come on into this office here, and we walk in with him, and he says, "Meet my two Danish friends, Ejler and Nils." And so we shake hands, and it's really like jovial, and he was showing us off. It was what Craig was doing. He made a living out of knowing people. That was his gig.
Yeah.
And by having us in tow, he became a little bit more known. And so it was an asset for him.
Yeah.
So we got to go to a rehearsal at La Mama, his Nils' girlfriend's theater company,
Okay.
in a penthouse apartment in Manhattan, with like a who is who assembly of people, a theater
Yeah.
rehearsal.
Yeah.
There was some young and beautiful people there. This was something else. And we became a little bit of a focus point because, well, we were Danish. We were unusual.
Yeah.
We weren't their old boring self. They all knew each other. They all knew who they were. You know how it can be jaded to be like too young, too rich, too beautiful, too talented.
Mm-hmm.
So how about slumming with some Danish import? Yeah, I mean, that was entertaining.
I bet it was.
Yeah, there was.
So did you stay in New York for long, or you were like the
I
call of the wild took you off?
Well, what happened was that I had a 6 weeks vacation in front of me.
Okay, that was your plan. You're like, this is my money from the offshore.
Uh-huh. I'm going to go and
6
blow it
weeks.
on a grand American journey, 6 weeks.
Okay.
And I said 2 weeks in New York City, and then I'm going to like hitchhike clear across the continent, because I'd seen that on TV that's what Americans did.
Yeah.
Only that was in the 60s. And now we are in 82.
Okay.
Fall of 82. So stayed for 2 weeks and blew through more than half my travel budget. I mean, New York City sucked you dry. But we had a lot of fun. I'm not complaining. So I went to NYU, to the bulletin board, and took some phone numbers down for drive-away cars and people who were looking for ride to share expenses going west.
Okay.
So I responded to one of them. His name was Freddie Castellano. I didn't know anything about American society or names or pedigree or any of that, but it turns out that he's from New Jersey, last name Castellano, first name Freddie, had a dog named Frankie. He was of the Castellano mafia family. A little pretty boy with money
Yeah.
and nothing really to do. And he was going to go and visit a property he owned in Colorado. He was going to visit some friends on the way. So we were going to go to New Mexico, visit some friends he had there. We're going to end up in San Francisco. Great, let's do that. So it took us 2 weeks to meander our way through the United States and America in a Ford Maverick, me, Freddie, and Frankie. Visiting people on the ways, Italian friends, making pasta from scratch. I'd never seen that happen. It was good food.
Yeah.
They were all Italians, everybody we met, except for one person. Where Freddie had gotten some property, I don't know how he got it. It was in Durango, Colorado.
Okay.
Beautiful piece of property with a large creek running through it at the foot of a mountain range, a meadow, aspens, stands of aspen, just incredibly beautiful place. It was really, really cold. I think we slept outside without a tent in 0 degrees. I had a good backpack, a good sleeping bag.
Thankfully, that's
Yeah,
cold.
Down sleeping bag.
0 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius.
Zero Fahrenheit.
Okay, yeah, that's cold. That's very cold.
Yeah. He wanted to sleep on the land. I said, great, let's do that. But we had enough for one night was enough. Next, we knocked on the door on a trailer.
Mm-hmm.
We drove up. He says, we're gonna go visit this friend that I know, not real well, but I know him. His name was Norton Gelman, Jewish person. Lived in a trailer. What was most impressive when we drove up to that trailer was that right outside of his front door to that trailer was a mountain of coarse cans.
When you say coarse cans, what do you
Coarse, the
mean?
beer.
Coarse.
Coarse
Oh.
beer cans. He
Okay.
clearly had just like, when he'd done with a beer, he would just open the door and fling that as far as a can will go. And they don't go very far because they have bad aerodynamics.
Yeah.
They're light, right?
Yeah.
So it was like right outside his door there was this flat pyramid of coarse cans. And I didn't take a picture of it. I don't know why I didn't do that, but that was etched in my mind. I said, oh my God, that is art. The trailer. The mountain of cans. And out in a beautiful picturesque landscape, there was Norton Gelman residing in that trailer. We hung out with him all day. He had a camper out back
Yeah.
that we slept during the night. Before that, we went out and shot his large 45 caliber handgun. I have a picture of that. I hit a bottle that just exploded. That's a big gun.
Yeah. Has a kick.
There's a lot of kick in that gun.
Yeah.
A lot of noise. He cooked a mean chicken. We call him Colonel Norton for that reason. He was incredibly generous. Went on from there to New Mexico, visited some other friends. A commune, living in a valley somewhere. I don't know how Freddie knew them. Very, very friendly people. Cooked us a fantastic breakfast. I remember it rained while we drove into this place, and the next morning the sun came out, and as we walked out the door to continue our journey, they put a record on the turntable. George Harrison, Here Comes the Sun.
Such a good
That
song.
kind of people. We end up in the suburb to San Francisco, Petaluma. Actually, first we ended up in downtown San Francisco with a drug dealer who was on the phone non-stop. And he had the world's longest phone cord. There was no cordless phones back then.
Yeah.
But he had a phone cord. He had quite a large apartment. He had a phone cord that would reach everywhere. And he was talking on the phone from the time we set foot on in his apartment till we left a day and a half later. I swear. He had a party that night. He was on the phone the whole time.
Really?
Just very, very interesting group of people in San Francisco. Different from New York.
Yeah. So
Then
you
we-
met like a, did you say drug dealer?
He was a drug dealer.
With the long phone line.
Yeah.
I'm imagining, like a curly, long plastic tail
Yeah.
following him around everywhere he goes.
Everywhere.
Business, day and night.
Mm-hmm.
Courtesy probably of some drugs.
Probably.
So where did you go after that?
I didn't take any drugs, by the way.
No?
No, I didn't.
You weren't even tempted?
I wasn't even tempted. We ran into a bit of illegal substance in New York City,
Yeah.
and I didn't really like my dealing with this, the way my senses were relating to reality. I didn't want that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm imagining this is like 80s New York. Obviously, I don't know a lot about this, but it's quite a different vibe, New York, at that time, right? There was definitely an era of cleaning up New York afterwards, wasn't there?
Yeah. Well, when in the 80s, New York was the graffiti capital of the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was places where there wasn't even any wall left, and there was subway cars that was completely covered with graffiti.
Really?
Yeah, it was remarkable. Yeah, San Francisco. That was my first meeting with San Francisco. We traveled north to Petaluma, where that was his last stop. Then he was going to go south to LA. He had a gig with advertisement company down there. He was going to be in a commercial for laundry detergent.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know you've made it big when you're involved in a laundry detergent.
Yes,
commercial.
you do. I mean, can you get Freddie a job? Well, I got this commercial. Yeah, good. We'll take it. Freddie, you're going to the West Coast now. Get going. Get out of Jersey.
Selling a different kind of powder.
So, from Petaluma, staying with his friends, we went to a Jerry Garcia concert. I didn't know anything about Grateful Dead or Jerry Garcia. It was remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry Garcia band. And from there on, Freddie drove straight out to the coast and dropped me off on Highway 1. And then he drove south.
Where on Highway 1? This is pretty long.
I think it's Stinson Beach.
Okay.
It's as directly out from Petaluma as you can get, but I'm not sure if it's Stinson Beach or not.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I had three things that I wanted to do. I wanted to visit my friend Nils in Copenhagen. I wanted to hitchhike across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to hitchhike Highway 1 to Vancouver, BC.
Yeah.
Where I had a friend at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. Person I met on our Central American travels.
Okay. So this is how many years later since then? that you're back?
Central American travel was 80, now it's 82, it's 2 years later.
Okay. Okay. So not too much later.
That's right. This is October 82 on Highway 1, hitchhiking.
Yeah.
The winter of 82 saw over 100 inches of rain falling on California, Northern California.
100 inches.
Over 100.
That's unbelievable. To
Yeah.
give context,
2.5 times what we got last year.
yeah, this last year was like, well, we had about 60 inches where we were.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's twice, more or less.
But that was an insane amount of rain.
Yeah.
It was like, there were times where it just felt like the roof was going to come in. It was raining so hard. So I cannot imagine what 100 inches would feel like. Go on, carry on.
Bad time to hitchhike.
Yeah. It's going to be, yeah. No one's going to want you in your car.
I hadn't done my homework. I hadn't studied California's climate geography.
Yeah.
I didn't know that California had a real rain season, and I was in the middle of it, trying to hitchhike.
So what did you do?
Well, it took me a couple of days to get from Stinson Beach to the Sonoma County line with Mendocino.
Yep.
I took shelter in cattle barns and places like that where I could.
Just on the side of the highway or whatever.
Yeah.
Just head for shelter.
I did get some rides.
Mm-hmm.
I did make some progress, but it was slow going. People are not prone to take in wet passengers.
No.
Sometimes some beat up pickup truck would come by and it wouldn't make any difference, and so
You just go in the back.
no,
Well, that's probably
but
quite cold if it's raining and you're in the back of the big
no, not in the back. But you know, if it's a beat up pickup truck, then it's okay that it's a wet passenger on the side,
Okay.
buck seat next to the driver. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's fine. So then I got ambushed by a big rainstorm just south of the county line, somewhere in at Sea Ranch.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Sea Ranch?
Yep, I am
Yep.
familiar.
And oh yeah, you visited Byron at Sea Ranch?
2 separate times. Or we visited a number of friends there actually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a cool place. It's an interesting place.
It is an interesting place.
It's definitely its own entity when you go there. It's cool.
Yeah.
It must have been interesting to be there early on in the 80s. Well, that must have been when it was starting, right?
I think it started in the 70s.
Okay.
There was still a lot of, let's call it, original structure there. A lot of cattle structures, barns, a lot of it in disrepair.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got ambushed by a 3-day rainstorm, and I sought refuge in this barn that was leaking like a sieve. And after 3 days, it stopped, sun came out, and I was wet. And I made my way out to the road, Highway 1, and sat at a little turnout on a guardrail and just like opened my backpack, spread out some clothes on the guardrail, opened my shirt. The sun was beautiful and strong and intense, and I was basking. I'm getting warm. Yes. And I'm just sitting there. I'm not trying to hitchhike. I'm just trying to like get warm.
Yeah.
Then a car pulls in, rolls down the passenger window, and the woman cries out, says, "You look like you need lunch and a shower." Hey, who can say no to that? The little Honda Civic, put my backpack in the back, got into the passenger seat. She says, "Before I take you to lunch and shower, we do lunch first. We're going to go to a Soroptimist meeting." Do you know what Soroptimists are?
No.
It's a charity organization for mainly older women who engage in things like hospice support, helping people who can't quite get around daily chores
Okay.
on a do-gooder basis.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they meet for long lunches here and there. And she was on her way to such a lunch. Me in tow.
So it makes sense that she would pick you up, given the...
Yeah, so she says, I'm going to go to this meeting here, and I want you to make a speech. I said, really? She says, yes. Say something interesting. So I realized I was back in the role that Peter Craig was his name. Not Craig. Peter Craig.
In New York.
As Peter Craig's pet. But now I was Mary Maubert's pet. Mary Maubert was a 50-ish woman married to a boat builder. She was also a boat builder.
Okay.
And after the meeting, the lunch, she took me home, and there she led me into their boat shop.
Okay.
Well, there was 2 boats under construction. One of them was a Viking boat,
Really?
of all things. Yeah, insane, huh?
It's just such happenstance.
What are the chances of that?
Yeah.
Impossible.
It seems to be quite a few things in this story that are impossibly connected.
I was gobsmacked. Couldn't believe it. So I stayed there for 3 days and took it in and got dry and got clothes washed, etc. And they sent me on the way again. So in order to get on with it, I gave up on the hitchhiking,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So during
not
those 3
officially.
days, yeah, I mean, it was an impossible thing
You're
to
just
do.
hemorrhaging time.
Dumb,
Yeah.
just uninformed plan. So during 3 days, I stayed with the Mauberts. I researched transportation possibilities from here to BC. I found out about a company that's called the Green Tortoise. Green Tortoise is the opposite of the Greyhound. It's a hippie organization, sprang out of the 60s, hauling people from happenings to happenings, from concerts to concerts, because there was a lot of things that was going on of counterculture activity. There was one commune that called itself the Ant Farm, who staged outrageous acts, such as building a wall of televisions, decking out a car that looks like a futuristic rocket ship, setting it all up out in the desert, setting the wall of televisions on fire and driving this car full speed into the wall, otherwise filming it all, you know.
Yeah.
And this kind of thing became like a flypaper for the hippie movement. But, you know, in order to get there, you gotta have transportation.
Yeah.
So they bought up old Greyhound buses that had been decommissioned, fixed them up, had some real mechanic ingenuity, kept these buses together with you know, wire, with baling wire and duct tape and ingenuity, and then they used them as public transportation, as their own bus line, the Green Tortoise.
And you spent how much time on this bus line?
I knew that they had a regular route, I found out, from San Francisco to Seattle.
Okay.
And from Seattle, it's a hop, skip, and a jump to Vancouver, BC.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down to San Francisco and got a ticket on a bus and jumped on the bus in San Francisco, curbside, some street down there, together with about, say, 25 other passengers and a driver and a mechanic, who was also a driver.
Okay.
Half the bus was seats, half the bus was one big bed. So,
Just at the back?
yeah,
Okay.
the back half was one
Just
big
all
mattress.
laid down mattress.
One big mattress platform. And then underneath all of that was a luggage compartment. And a bunch of other things that I don't know what was. I mean, it had the usual luggage compartment that a Greyhound bus would have. It was spacious. It wasn't cramped. It wasn't expensive. It didn't have any guaranteed schedule. You could not say with any certainty when you were going to arrive at your destination within maybe 2 to 3 day window.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then we started a journey north. And there was many stoppage points here and there. Mainly they wanted to go to hot springs. They wanted to end up in hot springs at night. They didn't drive at night.
Okay.
At night was for drinking and smoking marijuana and sit around a campfire.
And sitting in the hot springs.
And in hot springs. Oh, in Portland we went and saw Kate Wolf at a small cafe somewhere. She's a famous folk singer with a big reputation here. I got to see her when she was about like 35 years old. I didn't know anything about her, but afterwards I was told, oh, you're a lucky fella. Kate Wolf in her prime. Things like that they took us to. One of the passengers was dressed in purple. A young woman, very attractive. And I tried to strike up a conversation with her. And she was very matter-of-factly. I asked, why are you dressed in purple?
Yeah.
She says, well, that's what we do. I said, well, who is we? Well, we belong to a church. Oh. What kind of a church? It's a Buddhist. Actually, it was a Hindu.
Okay.
I believe it was a Hindu. It's a Hindu cult. I never heard of. The guru was named Sri Rajneesh. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. Residing in Rajneeshpuram.
The Rajneeshpuram, okay.
Close to the Oregon coast.
Made recently famous by the Netflix show Wild Wild Country, I believe, because it was an international hit.
Was it?
Yeah, everybody, I believe it was one of the most popular Halloween outfits for that year.
Really?
Yeah, so
Purple outfit, all purple?
all purple.
All purple. Her shoes were purple, her socks were purple. I don't know if her underwear were purple. But everything that showed was purple. Some it wasn't all the same shade. But it was purple.
But the vibe was the same.
It was purple. So one of the stops was going down this road to a gate with a couple guards. There, she got off the bus. They opened the gate. They welcomed her. She waved at us. We waved back. Got back on the road. Delivering one of the children to Rajneeshpuram. Hilarious. So the rest of the journey, I was, or part of the journey, I was pumping the driver and the mechanic about information about this Rajneesh cult. I was impressed with. I was infatuated a little bit with this attractive girl.
Yeah.
So I allowed myself to be very impressed by her enthusiastic endorsement of the learning that came from the guru.
Yeah.
And I am a person that like to think I have an open mind, especially if it serves a higher purpose, maybe not quite so honorable, but let that be what that is. But the driver said in no uncertain term, just get that place out of your mind, the sooner the better. Okay. It was not a popular place for the uninitiated.
No.
It had an ill repute.
Okay. Interesting, even at that time.
Yeah, it did.
Probably sound advice.
Yeah, probably.
We might not be having this conversation otherwise.
Well, you see, when you're on a journey like that I was on, you can allow yourself to be unmoored. You know, I had some money in my pocket. I didn't have any family obligations per se at home. I had a student loan that was manageable. I had no obligations to go back to work for my brother. I was freed from him.
Yeah.
That means that when you see a side road that opens up by serendipity or by other means, coincidence, you are allowed to take it. Much, much more than if you have a job as a full-time job with tenure at the end of it in the Danish public school system.
Yeah.
To go home to like in 5 weeks.
Yeah. And it's fun to take it.
Yes, sir. God knows where it leads, right?
Yeah. So you went on this long, slightly non-direct tortoise bus route. So where did that end up taking you through the coast in this area, through Elk and Mendocino County? Is that how you got there?
No, it did not. No, it started out of San Francisco. I don't know the route. I forget the route. I didn't look at a map.
Yeah.
I don't know where we were going.
Yeah.
But we ended up in Seattle.
Okay.
Then we ended up with my friend. I ended up with my friend in Vancouver.
Right, you said.
And from there on, I was going to be on a plane, and I had like a little more than 2 weeks left or so of my 6 weeks total.
Yeah.
And Vancouver is a very attractive city. Polite, clean, enlightened, cultural, intellectual. I was floating in the circuitry of University of British Columbia, environment that I love, Mm-hmm. I loved my time in college very much.
Yeah.
Teachers College.
Yeah.
So I fell in very, very seamlessly with that kind of people. And it was great. We had a very, very, very good time. Money was running out and time was running out. And I could not get that boat shop out of my mind. I could not get it out of my mind.
The Viking ship that was in the kind of the structure, right? Okay. So it was still playing in your mind.
Yeah. They were making a replica, a 24-foot replica of a Viking boat in that boat shop. And it was like 2/3 done. And they were behind time. And I got the idea, I should go help them. I want to learn how to build boats. I had a boat, my first boat, probably at age 12.
Really? Okay.
Maybe earlier, 10, 11, 12. It materialized magically one day at the farm. I think the itinerant carpenter who was taking care of the farms in the area, like keeping doors and windows working in the farms and the big barn doors, that kind of things. Mm-hmm. And also fixing farm equipment, because there was a lot of woodwork in farm equipment. Carpenter Holm. I think he knew my obsession with fishing and with the water. And I think he scored a boat somewhere. And he brought it, and there it was. It needed some fixing. So he helped me fix it.
Okay, so he told you about it. It wasn't just left there for you to discover. There was a.
He didn't. I never knew where it came from. I was never told where it came from.
Okay.
It was just there. So he said what needed to be done, and then he helped me do it when I couldn't do it myself.
Yeah.
My fishing pal, Karsten, with whom I had made many structures out in the woods, with whom we had roamed the woods with air guns and killed and eaten, he was in on the gig. He was very enthusiastic. We attacked that boat. We got it floating. We painted it. It's beautiful. I got some oars, some really good oars. I learned to row like a fiend. I took to it as a natural. I remember laying in the bow of the boat, all the way tucked up to the end of the bow. It's like a perfect place to like just lay down and rest.
Just right up at the front.
Right up at the front, and the lines diverge from the back of your head down the lines to the transom, down the lines of the boat, down the sides of the boat.
Yeah.
Beautiful curvy lines. I've never seen anything so beautiful in my life. I remember many times thinking that when I was a kid. So that had imprinted in me, and that was what made me grab the phone and call the Moberts in Wallala in their boat shop and asking in November of 1982 if they needed a helping hand with that Viking boat. And they said, yeah, come on down.
Perfect.
So, yes, had I gotten on that plane to Copenhagen from Vancouver, BC, my life would have played out rather differently. I would probably be sitting somewhere in suburban Denmark as a retired principal
Yeah.
in community school somewhere.
Yeah. It's funny to think about.
With a hedge and a nice car and a nice house. In a busy street outside. A small yard.
Probably some vegetables, I'm
Probably a greenhouse.
guessing. Yeah.
Instead, I went to Wallala and moved in with the Moberts in the loft of their shop. And I stayed there for 9 months and built 2 boats from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah,
Another learning process.
talk about it. Yeah.
And were they very skilled boat makers? They were good people to learn from.
Yes, they were. However, something had happened with the husband. He was a genius. He had attention deficit disorder.
Mm-hmm.
He had discovered the budding internet. This is in '82.
Yeah.
There's no internet, really,
Yeah, it's like
yet.
early.
He had a room that was air conditioned and had 2 computers in it.
How big were the computers?
Big. They needed air conditioning. They also had fans going non-stop. He had turned his back to the world. He had turned his face into cyberspace. Into the budding cyberspace. This is back when the cursor was a blinking neon green thing that,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
like a green screen.
Yeah.
All monitor screens are green, right?
Yeah. And a communication came out through a modem to a automatic typewriter and was printing. It didn't often come on the screen. It had to go out through a printer.
Directly printed.
Like conversations printed on paper. And it all went through the telephone system at going telephone rates. So they would be paying telephone bills to the tune of like $1,500 a month in '82.
That is a lot of money.
Yes.
But he was focused.
That's what he wanted.
And what was he doing? Do you know what he was doing with the internet at that point?
He was diving in. He wasn't doing anything practical.
Okay.
He was discovering.
Just exploring.
Yeah, he was discovering a new country.
Huh.
He was talking to people in Australia. He was talking to people in Russia. He was talking to people in South Africa. The further away, the better, the more fun it was.
Yeah.
He had chat clubs. They were talking about bullshit. They were talking about important stuff. Yeah. Strange. And then once in a while, I would go in maybe half a dozen times a day and ask advice. He was very patient, swiveled on his chair, stared at me, yes. So I presented the problem. Sometimes he would get up out of his chair and walk out and study it. Other times he would just tell me what to do. Just like that.
So it was kind of like learning from a slight distance, but you have like a steady hand to just keep you in the right direction enough.
That's correct.
Kind of ideal in a way. You can kind of learn, because I feel like in a way you learn slightly better yourself when you're having to really figure things out.
Yeah.
As well, right?
Yeah. It was a hands-off learning environment. Once in a while, the wife Mary, she was busy with she had a couple of kids, she had some goats, she had her Seroptimists, she had her things to deal with, but in the afternoon she would come by and then she would like teach me things. She was a very good craftswoman herself.
Boat related things?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'd run a little boatyard in Sausalito in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Together for a series of years where they built yacht tenders, little dinghies for yachts.
Yeah. Yeah. So were either of them into? I mean, they're boat making, but do they go out on the boats much?
No.
Didn't fish, or
No.
they were just more in the making mode. Interesting.
Yeah. No, they were not salty. They used to live on a boat. They used to have an English Channel cutter, about 38 feet, I think it was, a beefy boat, roomy, beefy boat. They had equipped it for really comfortable living in Sausalito, docked, that they lived on and sailed. But they sold that and bought property in Wallala and went ashore.
Yeah. Became landlubbers.
Landlubbers.
As my ocean-going parents would call them.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were there for 9 months and you managed to extract a great deal of information, I'm guessing, like knowledge about boat building.
Yeah.
Is that kind of where your learning, your mentors came from for boat building, or did you then learn from other people building boats? Or that was kind of the start that you needed, and you then...
Yeah, I with that experience took in an approach that made it possible for myself to have the ambition of building my own boat.
Yeah.
I learned enough with those two boats.
That became like a dot on your horizon.
Two boats is enough to make something solid.
Yeah.
One boat, maybe not. Two boats, yes. Those two boats were both built for people on commission. One boat disappeared south to Bodega Bay, I believe. The other boat was ordered by a doctor's wife from Little River.
Okay.
She wanted to row on Big River for, fun and exercise.
Yeah.
She had very specific demands about what this boat should be, how heavy, how big, blah, blah, blah. All those things. She really liked it. It worked very well. She got arthritic and infirm. She gave the boat to the rowing club in Fort Bragg, run by a mover and shaker named Dusty Dillon. She donated it. It got her name. The boat was then christened the Pamela G, because her name was Pamela Graham. The name was Pamela G. The chairman of the rowing club, Dusty Dillon, he had gotten keen on my boat.
Okay.
He really wanted my boat. He really wanted the rowing club to have one of my boats.
Yeah.
But he knew that there would never be enough money in the contingency that the people gave to the rowing club to be members to acquire one of my boats, even though my boats are ridiculously cheap.
Yeah.
But he wanted to underwrite also my ambition about running a boat class, meaning I recruit 6 or 7 students. They pay tuition. The money that comes from the students' tuition goes towards like lowering the price of the boat.
Yeah.
So my boat can be bought for like $8,000 or $9,000. So that's what Dusty Dillon wanted. He wanted one of my boats, and he also wanted to support my idea of running a boat class.
Yeah, an efficient system.
Yes, you could say so.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump from the Mobert's Boat Shop in 1982 to 2008.
Okay.
When Pamela Graham gives up her boat and it gets into the hand of the rowing club in Fort Bragg, and when Dusty Dillon then sells to Pamela Graham and gets $9,000 for it. And he gives me the $9,000. He says, I want to buy one of your boats. And underwrites the first boat class that I ran here in my shop. So the first the first boat that I got to build here in my shop was financed by the first boat that I built for the Moberts.
Yeah.
Like 20 some odd years later, 26 years later. Then Dusty Dillon, later on, he sells that boat. Actually, he dies, and the estate sells that boat, and now it's now in the hands of a good friend who lives in Anderson Valley, who is a very enthusiastic boat owner, and he loves that boat, and it's being used all the time. Very happy about that. The Pamela G disappears. You know, I forget who Dusty Dillon sells it to. I knew it at the time. That person sold it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Who sold it to somebody else. And then I get a call last year from a person who says, oh yeah, you don't know who I am, but I have one of your boats. I said, really? Which boat would that be? Well, it's the Dublin. Yeah, they all are. It's small. Oh, really? How small? Well, it's about 15 feet. Oh, really? That boat. First boat.
You knew what it was straight away.
I knew. He says, I'm getting old, and my wife and I decided to move to where our children live, and there's no room for that boat in my life anymore, and I'll never get on the water again. I know that. I was hoping that maybe you could help me sell this boat and find it a loving new owner. And after a conversation, I said, well, I'll think about it. Then a day later I call him up and I say, listen, I thought about what you said. I can promise one of the two. I can get the boat a loving new owner, but you're not going to get any money. How long did you have this boat? You said, I had it 12 years. I said, you have gotten everything out of that boat that you're going to get. You're not going to get any money out of it. But if you'll give it to me, I'll take it off your hands. He said, okay, I will think about that. Then a day later, he calls back and says, come and get it.
That's a cold, hard negotiation if ever I've heard one. I'll see your offer of money and raise you with nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I drove over there, sat in the trailer. The trailer had air in the tires. I hooked it up and drove it home. It's sitting out here now.
So the boat is here.
Uh-huh.
Ah, that's the other boat that's smaller. That makes a lot of sense now, because I've often wondered when we are picking up the Valkyrie, which is your boat, your fishing boat that we go out in now, that's the smaller boat that's next to it.
That's right. It's the very, very first boat I built from scratch.
Ah, amazing.
In 1982, so that's 41 years ago.
Yeah.
So I finished my first boat. This is April 1983. That little boat.
Yeah.
The little 15-footer. double ender. It was built for Pamela Graham. My mentor and his wife and their 2 sons were in Kansas to visit her parents for a week.
Yes, okay.
I was alone with the dog and the goats and the geese and the boat shop. And I was wrapping up this boat, doing the last things. And I finished it. And it was like a Saturday night. Nobody home. I had the keys to their van. I said, I'm going to go to the bar in Point Arena.
Yeah.
From Wallala to Point Arena, it's a 15 miles due west on the Ridge Road. So, I mean, I was done with the boat. Yay, I'm going to celebrate. Go to the bar. And it's like, there's a band playing. Queen Ida and the Zydeco band. It's a famous band. And they were hopping. They were on fire. And it was crowded, and it was a jolly crowd, and I was yammering with some people, and then the door opens up, and in comes a gaggle of women, of young women. And it happens to be the evening shift at Harbor House in Elk, Harbor House Inn in Elk, where my wife was running the kitchen. And one of the waitresses had the hots for a guy. She had a hot date at the Sign of the Whale in Point Arena, where I was that night. Sarah was her name. She was like 17. Her car wouldn't start. She talks Karen into chauffeur them to Point Arena. And Karen was exactly that kind of person who would do that.
Yeah.
She was all giving if when given a chance. So they all file into her master station wagon, drives down to Point Arena and walk into the Sign of the Whale. Walk in and to a crowded party atmosphere, and me at the bar and many other turns their head when they walk in, because this is a good looking group of young women, I tell you. And Karen and I locked eyes for a split second, and then again later, and then we danced. And then we exchanged phone numbers. And then I went back to the Moberts, and I could not get her out of my mind. And I had a second boat to finish up.
Yeah.
And by June, mid-June, I was done with the second boat. It was wrapped up. And Karen invited me to go with her to Seattle to her folks' place.
So you've been talking on the phone before, like during that period?
She had been down visiting a couple times.
Okay.
We'd seen each other.
Yeah.
It was mainly her coming down to Wallala, because I hadn't really, I didn't have any wheels really.
Yeah.
So she said, "You want to go with me to Seattle?" She had a sister with a big family up there, and her mother lived up there. I said, "Absolutely, I do." I didn't know it was her birthday, but that's what it was. She wanted to go there for the birthday. She had some vacation time. So she came and picked me up. And I said, "Listen here, Karen. I'm not coming back to this place. I don't know what's going to happen from here on out, but I'm loading my backpack into your car now." And she looked at me. And I could tell that she was churning. Wait a minute. And then she said, "Okay." So I loaded my backpack into her car. So me and her dog Jack and all my belongings went on a road trip to Seattle. And when we came back from that, it was a 10-day trip. We took our time.
Yeah.
We came back to that. From there, we came back to her house here,
Where we're recording this.
where we're recording this. I never left.
So you knew when you were going to do that road trip, you had your bag packed. This was a plan beforehand. You were gonna like make a proposition to her.
No, I did not know that.
It was just in the moment.
I had an out back to the airport of Vancouver.
Yeah.
That was the 50-50 proposition.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like a 10-day road trip in a car with that's full of luggage and a dog to get to know each other, compatibility.
For sure. It's make or break. If it doesn't work,
If it doesn't work, you'll
It's gonna
find
be
out
clear.
then.
yeah. It's a little bit like being on a boat. If you try traveling on a boat with a person, anything where you're in small spaces with little chance for escape, you learn pretty quickly if you're compatible.
Yeah. Nothing told me that we weren't.
So then you arrived here,
I did.
and so began the homesteading part of
That's right.
this story.
That's right. That was in 1983, July.
I think that's a pretty perfect moment for us to pause.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm getting hungry again. Here I have the last course.
The last course.
The last course.
Perfect. Let's finish up with
Yes.
a last course, if you. Yeah.
This is called Bolly's Molly's.
Okay.
It's a goat cheese from Penny Royal Goat Farm in Boonville,
Okay, nearby.
California.
So Boonville is on the 128. It's
That's
what,
correct.
Like a 40-minute drive from here, 30-minute drive from here.
40, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a boutique creamery. It says, what does it say? It's ripe. It says somewhere when it's ripe. It's supposed to be ripe right now. Ripe on September 5th. We have a little cheese knife here. We have a cracker. Would you like a cracker, sir?
I would love one, please. Thank you.
There you are.
Thank you kindly.
And we have some
Red currant.
some red currant jelly
Oh, good.
from the garden. Last year's harvest. This year's berries haven't been converted to jelly yet. So the Penny Royal cheese comes from my fishing.
Okay. That's a connection.
That's the connection. Without fish, I wouldn't have this. And why is that, you may ask?
I do.
It is because this cheese goes for $50 a pound. And I'm not the kind of a person to buy a $50 a pound cheese. I have to admit.
And neither am I. So that works out quite fortuitously for both of us. Thank you. What a treat. Let me try a little bit without and then with. Wow.
Yeah, this cheese is ripe. That's a powerful cheese.
That's great. Tastes like real cheese. Oh. That is so good. It's that kind of cheese that's so potent and so delicious that you want to eat the whole thing, but you know that you will pay the price of the richness if you do. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense.
Yeah,
I got 3 of these recently, and I brought one out on the water on one of the last fishing trips of the season.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and we devoured it. Just like that. No crackers, no nothing.
Wow.
Ooh. How extravagant.
And yet somehow it sounds very uncouth. To men, no doubt a couple of Modelo's down, eating $50 a pound cheese like a caveman. What a treat. Well, I have to say thank you, Ejler. This is, well, it's a journey that's not yet over, but
Yeah.
it's, I've enjoyed your stories immensely, so thank you for taking the time. I'm delighted that, yeah, you have such great recollection and detail. It really paints a picture of your every story, you know. I feel like I'm there.
Well, good. Yeah, well, I re-experience all the senses and emotions of the moments as they come out of my memory banks, you know.
Yeah.
It's joyful for me
It's interesting how
to have somebody
fire up
who has open ears to retell over such a long span of time here that we've been sitting for close to 5 hours probably.
Yeah.
And you have kept an open mind, open ear, and a real treat for me.
Oh, the feeling's mutual. Absolutely.
Right, that wraps up another episode. But Ejler still has just a little bit more wisdom to sprinkle on us before he heads back to the hills of Northern California. Believe it or not, we'll hear how Ejler settled down. I'm doing that in inverted commas, but I realize that you can't see that. Well, we'll hear how Ejler settled down in his own specific and highly individual way. If you're enjoying this podcast, then feel free to share it with a friend or an enemy. You never know, it might cheer them up a bit. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.